Hello once again, friends.
I think I'm going to try to take this one this week, Bob, if you don't mind.
Have at it, Hoss.
Appreciate it. Welcome to another edition of This Week in CA Football, powered by GEICO. I'm Tim McDonald, and he's Bobby Royals, and you know the deal.
Nicely,
like
I really sound like that?
That was me being you. Yeah.
Nicely done. Well, let's get ready for Week 8 of the CA football season. Tim, let's hit the fans with some headlines coming out of last week's action.
An impressive effort by New Hampshire at home versus William & Mary. Only gave up 3 points, Bob, and New Hampshire's offense, of course, always steals the headlines, deservedly so. But it was the defense this week that got it done. Only allowed 217 yards of offense to a William & Mary team that was ranked number 10 at the time, and just shut the Tribe down. Such a great effort by that defense, Bob, and really the game wasn't in doubt. At halftime, 15-3, and they just rolled the rest of the way. A huge statement win. How about JMU? Talk about statements.
Yep.
62-7 over Towson. No one saw that one coming.
Yep.
Especially, we know Towson was down this year, and we knew they've been struggling with injuries a little bit of late. No one saw that coming. Especially defensively, Towson got a jump. We saw Lee and Jimmy Moreland absolutely dominate that Towson team. A huge win for them. And all of a sudden, JMU back in a little bit of noise. Of course, I saw John Robertson and crew in person.
Yes, we did.
It's just a well-oiled machine. They just line up, they get going, they score points, and they don't stop. A little bit of a sloppy second half. Andy Kelly was not a happy man in the second half, but overall, just a gritty performance across the board for CA football teams that wanted to make a statement this weekend.
Of course, Richmond, the Road Warriors, once again this week with a win over UAlbany. Yep. And Delaware and Stony Brook quietly sitting there with 2 wins in the CA. Yeah, I got, I'll finish up your mess.
Thank you.
So, great work as always, Tim. This leads us to the game of the week, and once again, it features William & Mary. The Tribe are at home this time around as they face another top 10 opponent in Villanova.
We said last week that we knew these next 2 weeks for William & Mary were going to determine its season. Well, a lot of people are saying William & Mary, a tough loss to New Hampshire, only generating 3 points. Offensively, they just couldn't get it going. They finished 4 of 16 on third down conversions, Bob, so just did not get it done versus New Hampshire. You go into this game and you think, okay, maybe William & Mary can slow the ball down and get Villanova, out of rhythm a little bit. Not so fast. Villanova is the #1 ranked team in CA football in time of possession, 33 minutes and 32 seconds a game. Not to mention John Robertson for the 4th straight week has thrown for 4 touchdowns. So I don't know how you slow him down, what the game plan is, because we've seen teams try to do it. But again, William & Mary, I look at this game and you enter it and you say, what an opportunity for William & Mary. Not, okay, William & Mary, another tough matchup. I say what an opportunity at home. You get a chance to come back home. It's going to be homecoming, Bob. Yep. That defense played well versus New Hampshire at times, but gave up a couple of big plays. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the time of possession. Can William & Mary throw Villanova off a little bit in terms of trying to get them out of rhythm? That's going to be huge in this game. Of course, Steve Cluley, I'd like to see him take a little bit more shots downfield. Trey McBride, the receiver for William & Mary, had 8 catches last week, still had under 30 yards. That says something right there.
Yeah, we got to look forward to that Tribe defense. We're used to them being dominant. The last few weeks, not so much. So you got to believe there might be a little chip on their shoulder this week.
Can I pull a Bobby Royals and add something
else
here? Not to mention, Villanova's defense right now, 2nd in CA football in total D. Of course, we're overlooking them every single week.
Oh, yeah.
They've allowed the 2nd least touchdowns total this year, 14 in CA football. Just keep that in mind as well. Don Cherry.
Harmon, Cherry, and Lucas. Those are some dominant linebackers for Villanova. That kickoff will be set for 3:30, and the CA.TV crew will be in attendance. More on that later on. And at 12:30 on Saturday, there's a battle of 2 teams looking to rebound from last week when UAlbany tracks up to Orono to take on Maine.
These teams have had a history. UAlbany out of the NEC prior to joining CA football. Oftentimes, they split home and home series with Maine, so these teams are familiar with each other. UAlbany, what do? They've coming off 2 straight losses right now. Maine, likewise. It's been a tough stretch of games for both of these teams. UAlbany last week was limited to 56 rushing yards. We saw Omar Osborne really get shut down versus a Richmond team that isn't really known for its run defense, but they got it done. I look at this game and I think it's interesting. Maine enters this without Dan Collins, the quarterback, who's thrown 9 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions. Most likely it's going to be Drew Belcher, the backup. He's played a little bit this year, but he's 6 of 18 for 64 yards. That Collins injury, it said Coach Cosgrove during the call, said it looked like it's a pretty serious injury. I expect Albany to try to get their 2 big play wide receivers back in it. They did it late versus Richmond last week. Didn't do it in the first half. Fell behind early. Cole King had 145 yards last week. And Josh Gontarek, the fantastic freshman. I expect UAlbany to try to get it to their weapons early. Maine right now is averaging 14 points per game. I know it struggles, and I know it's tough right now offensively, but you have to figure something. Maybe Drew Belcher can get it done.
That game can be seen nationally on Fox College Sports Pacific. Another 12:30 kickoff. This one slated for Comcast Sportsnet and CA.TV will feature 2 rivals squaring off as Delaware hosts Towson. And Tim, we remember last year's game between these two.
Indeed we do. The Blue Hens stuck into the Tiger pen last year and stole a win. you could say they gave that game away, but really Delaware stole that game.
Yes, it did.
I'm sure Towson remembers that. Let's remember Towson's coming off that really tough loss, 62-7. Gave up a lot of big plays, a pick six here, a fumble there. So really the score dictates a lot of possible outcomes. But still, Delaware can quietly move to 3-0 in CAA football play. We know that loss to Sacred Heart was tough, but they came back at home, and they got it done last week versus Elon. Went up 27-3 at the half. Again, they only scored one offensive touchdown in the second half. Elon had a little bit of a comeback, but still a nice win if you're Delaware. And you have a great chance at home, again, to move forward. Towson, I want to see how they respond. I know Coach Ambrose has just been talking about the injuries and the depth of this team, but no one's going to feel sorry for you in CAA football. He was the first one to admit that. So I want to see how this team gets back off the ground. We saw 2 quarterbacks last week, and it didn't really work that well for them. Again, Delaware has a great opportunity at home. Towson's Ryan Dallaire, as bad as Towson's record indicates his plan, he's just been an absolute, for a defensive lineman, 45 tackles and 8 sacks this year. James Sims, the CAA tackles leader. I think Towson can give Delaware some fits. I think ultimately that Delaware run game is just going to wear them down.
At 1:30, Stony Brook takes its 2-game winning streak on the road to Elon to take on the Phoenix.
And just like Delaware, don't forget about Stony Brook, also lying in the weeds right now. They've suddenly won 2 straight games. Let's remember, too, they lost to William & Mary, a very good team, in overtime. So right now, their CAA football record could potentially keep on moving here. They're going to have to go to Elon, and it's going to be homecoming for Elon. I want to throw out a little stat here. Mike Quinn, the quarterback for Elon, has thrown the ball 277 times this year through 6 games, Bob. That's like, I mean, I don't know. That's fantasy-esque numbers right there.
Yes.
So we know for a fact that this Stony Brook team, which, by the way, now ranks first in CAA football, total D, pass D, and rush defense in FCS. They lead the FCS in defense. We know they're going to get tested. Last week, I was really impressed by Elon's ability. Trey Lennon, freshman receiver who we didn't know a lot about, had his first 2 career touchdown receptions. Again, Elon got it done versus Delaware in the second half. Didn't really show up that much in the first half offensively. I expect Stony Brook's ground game, Stacey Bedell and James Kenner average over 5 yards per carry. That's going to be huge in this, and I expect them to exploit Elon that way.
Stony Brook looking to improve to quietly 3-1 in league play.
And you know who Stony Brook plays the next week after that? At New Hampshire.
There you go. That'd be a big game. And Elon, of course, looking for their first conference win of the season. And we wrap up Week 8 with 2 teams that will likely start their respective backup quarterbacks when Richmond plays host to Rhode Island at 3:30 on ASN and CA.TV. And
we didn't mention it earlier, but I'm driving into work. We're in Richmond here in CA football. I'm driving into work, and I hear on the radio Michael Strauss has a fractured ankle. All of a sudden, I almost drove off the road for a second now. But seriously, Michael Strauss' injury, and it's a shame too. Obviously, it's a shame for the league. It's a shame for Richmond. He did it in a respective way, though. He threw an interception, was making a tackle. That's how he broke his ankle. They say it's going to be about a month. I think it might be a little bit longer. We do know, though, Rocco can turn to Rocco. He can say, hey, nephew, go get it done. So Michael Rocco, obviously the quarterback, is going to come in. He's played well at times this year, mostly been used as a Wildcat quarterback. But again, Richmond has quietly won 2 straight games as well. They have a great chance at home versus Rhode Island. Rhode Island struggled last week versus Villanova. Obviously not a tough task for anyone to go to Villanova and now go to Richmond in back-to-back weeks. That's just hell in itself right there.
Yes, it is.
But still, James Kefferell, the quarterback for Rhody, came in last week. Really, in the second quarter, he did play well. 242 yards, 49 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, both to Robbie Jackson. Again, most of that came versus Villanova's second defense, but still, if you're Rhody, you have nothing to lose. Just go out there and play your game. You have nothing to lose. You're playing at Richmond with a great chance. Seth Fisher, again, our guy, the running back for Richmond, had 2 rushing touchdowns again last week. Expect Richmond to try to get the run games going once again at home versus a Rhody team who struggled against that.
And we can't forget last year, one of the biggest upsets of the conference season, Rhody knocking off
4
Richmond.
field goals, I think, in that
10.
game determined the victory. So I'm sure Richmond, you can bet some guys remember that game.
CAFootball.com has television clearance information for Week 8, and CA.TV will once again simulcast a pair of Saturday's TV games for free on any device.
You can find Bobby and I on Twitter, of course, but more importantly, don't follow him. More importantly, you can find CA Football on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram by searching CA Football and using the hashtag CAFB.
CA Football was on campus at Villanova last weekend. Check out the Going Deep feature on the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation and additional on-campus content on our blog, cafootball.wordpress.com.
And I know I always add in a little side thing about our trip, but it really was nice to see Coach Talley and see a coach who's dedicated to doing something off the field that you say is corny, it can save a life, but it really can. It's just amazing what his foundation has done and how it's impacted the rest of the CAA. I'd really strongly advise you to go check out that story on his Bone Marrow Foundation and how it's spreading not only to his team, to the conference, but to people all around the world. And like we said earlier in the show, Bobby and the CA.TV crew, along with me, will be in Williamsburg for the game between the Wildcats and the Tribe. You can follow along on social media during our trip and watch the next Going Deep feature, which can be seen on the following Tuesday.
Can't wrap up the show today without talking about the
Yak.
CA Football's podcast returns tomorrow with in-depth analysis around the league from us and our guy Alex Souza. We also will have special guests from both William & Mary and Villanova to break down Saturday's big contest down in Williamsburg. All of that can be found tomorrow on, you guessed it, our Everyday is Saturday blog.
So corny.
On that note, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.